Hey everyone, before we get into the podcast, we want to announce some updates with our Power Monkey courses leading into 2022. We are excited about continuing to offer our gymnastics and weightlifting combo courses, 1 and 2 day offerings. If you go to powermonkeyfitness.com, search under the events tab, you'll be able to see what we already have on the agenda for 2022. We will be expanding into kettlebell offerings as well. Those are already up on the site too. If you're looking to host one yourself, please contact us at info@powermonkeyfitness.com and we'll get one of the courses out your way if one's not already on the agenda. Come hang out with us, learn some technical expertise when it comes to weightlifting, gymnastics, and now kettlebell. Hopefully see you soon. Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, and this week my co-host is none other than Dawn Fletcher, the creator of Driven Mind Training, and we actually have one of her athletes with us. Kelsey Kiel, incredible CrossFit athlete turned bobsledder, turned back to the CrossFit community. It was great to be able to talk with a new co-host, but also someone that works directly with an athlete on a regular basis to talk a little bit about how that relationship works, what it means to become more mentally strong, and maybe some of the challenges that come along with being a CrossFit athlete trying to transition into something new like bobsled. The fact that we just had the Winter Olympic Games, we had some insight into what was going on in that event with an athlete that was in the running to make that Olympic Games. Very interesting to talk with Kelsey and hear what she's got coming up next. We hope you guys enjoy this one. Well, we're excited to have two guests on this week. Dawn Fletcher will be our guest host. Dawn, thank you so much for taking the time to be on with us again. Unfortunately, Chad will not be here, but stepping in gracefully will be Dawn to help co-host. And we have one of her athletes, a guest athlete. Kelsey, thank you so much also for being on with us today. We appreciate the time.
Good to be here, Dave.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Excited.
Well, this is the first time we've ever done something like this where we have essentially a coach and an athlete together. And Dawn, your background as a coach is specific in the field of mental training, trying to get athletes be a little bit more prepared when it comes to what happens above the neck, as opposed to just getting the body prepared for competition. And I think most people end up glossing over this or not putting enough emphasis on this. And I'm curious to kind of get the athlete coach take with regards to how impactful this has been, Kelsey, for you to have a coach to take you maybe to the next level, and Dawn, what it's like to work with an athlete like Kelsey, someone at her level, versus maybe who you work with on a regular basis in your daily practice. So I know there's a lot there, but let's just first start off with, how did you guys meet and how did you guys actually first get together in terms of working together?
I was going to say, it's been honestly a couple of years. It's been what,
Yeah.
like 2 years?
2 years now.
Maybe-ish. I was trying to think of the timeline, but we haven't really seen
Yeah.
each other. We catch up or, we ping each other here and there just to see how I try to check on her. But yeah, it was probably like a couple of years ago when we just did a little intensive bit of work together. But maybe you can kind of share anything that was going on for you then.
Oh yeah, so I vividly remember it was pretty much right when when COVID hit and the world was kind of shutting down, and I was still in the CrossFit space pretty much full time. I was living up in Boston and I was training full-time CrossFit athlete, and I knew that there were points in my performance that were lacking because of, like you said, what was happening between my ears. And so I just knew that I wanted to kind of figure out what was going on up there. So working with Dawn, we did a few, like she said, intensive things together. And some of the things, I still to this day will quote some of the stuff that she said to me back then, because that was a pretty life-changing couple months for me around, when the pandemic hit and everything like that. So
Interesting. So, you come from a pretty high-level athletic background, right? You grew up playing soccer and you did some bobsled and obviously competing at CrossFit at a pretty high level. Were these things that were they never introduced to you in any other sports growing up? Is there something that kind of forced you into saying, hey, I'm missing something in my training from previous sports that just weren't there?
Yeah, so when I played soccer in college, we definitely did some mindful work, like practices with visualization of games and plays and that type of thing, but it was definitely not a focus. I also played at a pretty small Division 3 school, and I just don't know if we just didn't have the resources, but it just wasn't a big focus for us. And then after college, I eventually found CrossFit, and I knew that handling nerves was a big part of it, and handling, the anxiety and all of that that goes into competing. But I never really, and I always knew that, they always say like so much of it is mental. And there was a while there that I didn't really realize how much of it was and what was going on in my everyday life that was having such a big effect on my mindset and my focus while I was, in the gym or competing or anything like that. So that's really when I was like, all right, we need to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And going from a team sport to an individual sport, that's a pretty big jump too, right? Where you have other people to rely on and you're collectively trying to figure out a solution together out on the field. Then jumping into the CrossFit space, you were an individual athlete before you went on to team. But I'm curious, going from a team sport to an individual sport, was there a bigger mental barrier now knowing that everything was just on you rather than that where you're in a situation where you can share the load and share the what's going on in the particular competition setting?
Yeah, I mean, with soccer, it was like I knew my strengths and I knew my weaknesses. And I mean, that's no different when you move into CrossFit, but CrossFit, especially when you're an individual, there's absolutely no hiding. So the whole, you talk to any high level CrossFitter, any CrossFitter in general, you're constantly shown what you're bad at. And that's kind of like, well, here, we're just going to put it in front of you. And this is what you're not good at. And you have to work on that. With soccer and the team sport, like you said, there was so much you could rely on other people, to pick up here and pick up there. But it was definitely a shift for me, and just, having so many weaknesses when I started, like that was a big part of it too. And I feel like I gradually and just like instinctively went to kind of the team side of CrossFit because I was so used to being on a team previously. Yeah.
Right. And I'm curious from your perspective, and Kelsey, I don't want to put you on the spot here, and I don't know if Dawn would open up about this, but particular areas of weakness that you noticed working with Kelsey, because I know like each individual is different. Some things that maybe you said, this is an area that we definitely need to work on. Were there things that you noticed right off the bat or that slowly started to merge where you're able to say, I know that if we put some time and effort into this particular area that we're going to really see the most benefit?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's probably particular to Kelsey. I would just say that the nature of the work is like we're talking over FaceTime or Zoom, and it's a person you've never met before. We didn't have a relationship before that. We had maybe crossed paths at like a competition or on social media or something. And so it's really a lot about, and I'd love to hear your take on this, Kelsey, but it's a lot about like building trust. How do I know I can trust this person with my like deepest insights, with the things I'm going through emotionally, the things I'm going through personally. I think she appreciated that she knew she would have breakthroughs if she could move through some of that stuff with somebody, but the initial barrier is one of trust of this is a stranger essentially, and how we can develop that relationship to get to a point where there's safety, and then she can begin to open up about more of the ongoings she has within herself. And I think that we did that for whatever reason very quickly and very naturally, and that is what actually enabled her growth to happen, because as we moved through some of that stuff, there was just more and more like with every breakthrough there was just more positives on the other side. So I would say it's one of building trust with somebody and being able to then speak to your deepest emotions, which is kind of like an emotional intelligence piece and almost a yeah, just like an appreciation for what you have going on and being able to speak to that. I think that's speaks to your level of like emotional maturity too.
Would you say that an ideal situation is one where you actually are able to work in person with someone, or do you think that you can work virtually and get the most out of that athlete or get them to where they need to be in the way the world works today? I'm curious, like how your normal relationships work and what you find to be best.
I mean, I'd love to be able to meet with people in person just to
Right.
have that like FaceTime and remove the screen between us. But honestly, like I've been doing this for almost 10 years and largely at least 75% or more of it's online. And I think we're all used to now like talking to screens and being with each other. So I don't think, I'd like to say I don't think it super affects the ability to have that relationship, but of course I'd love to be in person and love us to just like go have coffee and talk. And when I can do that with athletes, or if they're visiting San Diego or I'm in their location, I certainly prioritize that.
All right. And now, Kelsey, from your end, you've moved from individual to team, and kind of right now, what is your goal? Are you continuing to move into the team space, or you have any ambition or hope to compete as an individual athlete anymore?
That's a great question. I don't really know yet if the individual thing is something that I'll do again, only because I did take pretty much almost 2 years off of competing in the CrossFit space to do the bobsled thing. And then coming back again, I just kind of naturally went to the team thing. And we happened to be able to put 4 people together in Philadelphia. And like I missed training with someone and with, now 3 others. And it's just naturally worked like that. My training partner now at the gym I'm at, before the season started or before we even like had talks of a team, we just kept saying like, if it's going to work out, it's going to work out. Otherwise we're going to push each other and try to do the individual thing. But there's something about, and we can maybe go into this a little bit later, but like taking that time off and doing a different sport, and then coming back, I've just been having more fun than I've had ever doing CrossFit. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But I did just actually compete as an individual, and it was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of me, getting back into that headspace that Dawn and I worked on when I was training as an individual prior to my break. And it was kind of like getting back into that practice of that mindset work when I'm competing as an individual. Competed as a team before that in Miami, but it's just like kind of put more kindling on the fire. I'm really excited, to keep this ball rolling.
So there is something special, unique about both sides of it, right? But it seems like the team side of it, if you find the right team can be amazing, right? If you're only in it because, you want to get on the podium and you feel like this person has the tools that you don't have, maybe that's different, like because the goal is more external, right? It's more about whatever that prize is, rather than enjoying the process and being with a team that you feel like you can grow with together. And it seems like you found maybe a team that you enjoy going to the gym with every day, and say, whatever the outcome is, but at least we're enjoying the process.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about, is that process. Like,
right.
That's what I've done a few podcasts in the past couple of weeks, and I just feel like that's the point that I keep coming back to. It's like going to the gym every single day. It's like, I don't want to go run 14 intervals on the assault runner. Like that's not fun, but it's like the process of getting better and the process of now doing it for my teammates, because I don't want to be dragging them on a running event kind of thing. So it's cool.
And Dawn, from your perspective, the team side of it, do you ever work with groups, and do you work with teams, and have you ever worked with Kelsey and her teammates at all?
I haven't specifically with Kelsey and her teammates. I worked kind of closely with a team who finished 5th a few years ago, and I've definitely done some work with teams who bring me in so that we can do a session together in their training or in their preparation, which is really cool. That's actually like when I was getting my master's degree, I was doing all of my work in team cohesion, because that's the thing I just geeked out about the most, because I always played team sports in college and high school, and I found that the dynamics within a team were like the most intriguing to me. So It's funny, I don't do as much of that anymore because I got into CrossFit and just other sports, but it's definitely still a passion of mine, and I'd be interested to, bring it back and do it a little bit more often.
Yeah, it seems like it's as much an individual, like if you're in a team sport, you need to have a collective mind working together. And if one person is really focusing on their mental game and the rest are not, I mean,
For sure.
one person can have their mental game completely on point and still not work out. So I would see a ton of benefit in something like that. Even in an individual sport like gymnastics, when we were competing, we competed as a team. Our team score was what we all were striving for the team competition rather than anything individual based. So we would try to do a lot of team building things and figure out, I was mentioning this on a previous podcast recently, how one of the things that we did leading up to one of our world championships were prior to the competition, we all sat in a room, 6 of us with our coaches, and we all tried to talk about what made us compete optimally, meaning in terms of the preparation for that event. So were we an athlete that really wanted the rest of the team screaming and yelling and like being in our face and getting us really up for that event? Were we an athlete that didn't want anybody to say anything? Did we need help on something prior, getting the bars prepped? And so like, even though you're an individual, having that team know what to do to prepare you for that played such an important role in making sure that everybody had a sense of what to do, even when they weren't up on the floor. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really cool. Just having that like shared appreciation for what others' styles are, what their needs
Right.
are.
Right. It seems like in a CrossFit setting, the same thing needs to happen, and everybody needs to know exactly how you click out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems fairly appropriate that Winter Olympics are going on right now, and you spent 2 years training.
She just casually dropped that she was like, gone to do bobsled for a couple
years.
years.
Right. Yeah. So gone to do bobsled for 2 years. Can you just tell us how that all happened, and kind of we'll go from there, but how did you go from CrossFit to picking up bobsled?
I was actually approached through my social media, through Instagram. She's racing as the USA 1 sled, the top pilot in the world. Kaylee Humphreys reached out to me and just was like, hey, on paper, you look like a phenomenal bobsledder. Have you ever thought about giving it a shot? I'm like, absolutely not. Don't even know what that entails. So it was just kind of a conversation at first. And then I think she reached out to me, Dawn, when we start, like around the time that you and I started working together. Because if my timeline's correct. And then at the end of the summer in 2020, I decided to leave Boston, and I was going to make the move out to Las Vegas with Justin Kotler and that crew out there to do more CrossFit things. And it was about 36 hours before I was set to get in my U-Haul truck to drive across the country. Kaylee gave me a call and said, we recommend not going all the way out west because I think we have a bed for you at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid, which is obviously New York, East Coast. And she said, if I'm on a bordering state of New York, I might not have to quarantine as long and, all this stuff. So I just made a decision to, instead of move across the country, I just came back down to Philly, put all my stuff in storage and just kind of waited to get that call to go up to Lake Placid.
That's amazing. I mean,
just so crazy. We have a bed for you at the Olympic Training Center.
Yeah. Wow. What a call.
Why isn't anyone calling me with that information?
So, it was wild.
Yeah. So what was that experience like? You've never been in a bobsled, I would imagine, prior to that. It seems like it's a pretty insane event. Were there nerves aside from just saying I'm stepping into a new thing? Like this is something that could be deadly to try when I'm, didn't grow up doing it. What was kind of going through your mind the first time you jumped in there?
Oh, well, all of the other stuff aside, the actual sport of bobsled, like you said, is absolutely insane. There's no way to describe it. We always say, before you've ever gone down the track, no one can tell you what it feels like because you just have to do it. Some people said it was like getting into a metal trash can and getting shoved down a hill, and it's just loud and crazy, but even that's not a good description of it. because it's just kind of a one of a kind experience.
Aerodynamic garbage can. That's
exactly, with a lot of like pressures, you're going to like squish down and everything. So the very first time that I went, of course, there's like all the other stuff, like you're practicing before you're actually on ice, you're practicing the mechanics of like the hit, and you're pushing the sled, and what everyone says is just get in the sled. Your first time, just get in, make sure you get in the sled, get in the sled, get in the sled. And that was repeated over and over. And I'm like shaking at the top of the track in Lake Placid, and like watching a couple of people go. And I'm like, okay, it's my turn. I'm like just terrified. And watching that like first hit back, it's like I don't even hit the sled. I just kind of like run with it, and I make sure that I get in the sled. And it was absolutely insane. The very first time, they don't really like, you're not hopping into something and buckling up your seatbelt. Like you're like hopping into this thing and you're holding on to the frame of the sled. You're squished in half. So my head is like between my legs. My hands are on either side of my legs, holding onto the frame, and the like back of the seat barely covers your butt. Like you're there. And so I'm like death gripping the sled for fear that I'm going to fly out because of G-force pressure. I'm not going to fly out, unless my pilot were to crash. But I get to the bottom of the hill, and your adrenaline is it's insane. You get out, and it was like a lot of people were saying you either get out and you're like, fuck this, I'm not doing that ever again, or you're like, let's go again. And luckily
there's no like bunny slope the first time, like we're just gonna shove you down like 30 feet and just see how you do it, like 2 miles an hour.
And of course we're in Lake Placid, which is actually one of the hardest tracks in the entire world. So that's reassuring.
Yeah, that's quite an initiation into the sport. So you were in the 2-man.
Yeah, so the women's side actually only has 2-man.
Okay.
And then they have mono bob, which is just the pilot and her sled going down.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So from a pushing perspective, your goal, so, especially Winter Olympics going on now, bobsled looks like it's starting today or yesterday. All your goal is to just get that thing moving as quickly as you possibly can, and then jump in as quickly as you can and keep your head down, right?
Right.
Is that the goal?
You're pretty much, you're trying to generate as much force as you can. You have to be in sync with your pilot. So that's another, thing that we're practicing before we actually go down the track. You're trying to get in sync with them so you both hit the sled at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit it, and it's almost like a power clean, but you're like this and you're running on ice. So not like a power clean, but the same kind of, that's how I was trying to think about it. And you get it out in front of you, and you're just pushing that thing as hard as you can. Your pilot will jump in, and then as a brake woman, I would take 3 to 8 more steps, depending on the track, depending on where we were, before then I would hop in. And people always ask, like, do you kind of like know the track so you kind of lean with it? But the goal as a brakeman is you're just trying to stay as still as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told, because once you move at all, the pilot can feel that the sled moves, and that'll send them off track a little bit. So as soon as you like are in, you hold that position, and even if like your hand is wrong or something's wrong in the sled, you don't move until you feel that G-force pressure hit you. As soon as you hit a pressure, then you can like kind of adjust or something like that. But
wow.
Yeah.
So you're just like hanging on for your life back there, and just like,
yeah. The thing is like, you're not going to fly out, like I said, because there's so much pressure, but it feels like you're going to fly out. Like you'll hit a bump and your butt will come up a little bit, and you're just like.
Do you think it's more fun to be the driver where you can see what's going on, or in your position where you're just back there hoping for the best?
That's a great question, because the pressure of being a driver with having someone behind you, like you have to get them down the hill safely. Like, I don't think I would want to be the driver. So
are you watching the Olympics right now? Are you following anyone?
So they haven't gone yet. Skeleton, which is even crazier in my mind than bobsled, they're just going straight head first down the track. I think they start today or tomorrow, and then the bobsled mono bob for the women, and then the 2-man for the men's team start, I think, on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I have to like do the conversion of the time. It's a little confusing, but
yeah.
So they start this weekend.
It's awesome. And it seems like a lot of CrossFitters have actually jumped into the bobsled track for whatever reason. I mean, maybe athletes like yourself are just built, to be able to generate a lot of force and to be able to push really well. I don't know if any CrossFit athletes have been asked to be drivers, but one of our coach from Power Monkey too, Tiffany Parker, who was a USA sprinter, has been, I don't know if she's still there, but she was at Lake Placid as well. Did you ever run into her out there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hung out with Tiff a lot.
Yeah. So it's funny that it's kind of a breeding ground. I'm sure there's a lot of USA bobsled people just checking out Instagram for CrossFitters and seeing
well, so it's because Colleen Foch was, obviously she's a CrossFitter. She was brought in pretty much the exact same way that I was. Both her and I had zero, just knew nothing. Like we were just kind of thrown into it. Normally there's like a combine and a rookie camp and things like that, but I guess because Kaylee wanted to see what we could do, we were just kind of thrown right into the national team. Like we were training and then they had team trials, and it was just like we're drinking from a fire hose really fast. So it's interesting just to like, when I think back on the whole experience, obviously it was completely different training, still got to lift in the gym sometimes, but it was like I didn't know if I was going to be able to make an Olympic team in a year and a half. It was going to be really hard to make an Olympic team in a year and a half, having zero sprinting knowledge or bobsled knowledge at all. But it was almost like I couldn't like not try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And clearly CrossFit didn't go anywhere. So
how did it end? So what happened at the end there?
Well, it was clear I was not going to make the Olympic team.
Okay. How close into the Olympics did you get through some selection processes and then this was leading up to 2018, right?
Sorry?
This was leading up to 2018 games to Korea?
No, for this.
Oh, for this Olympics. Okay.
Yeah, for this year. So I went up, I hired a sprinting coach from the University of Pennsylvania. I worked with him pretty much 2.5 months this summer to try to learn how to sprint. Because what a lot of people don't know is that, bobsled is, you're literally just sprinting on ice. So if you have that technique, you're already ahead of the game, which is why, Keisha Love, who's in the Olympics right now, racing with Kaylee, she was a sprinter in college. Right. Lolo Jones, you have these like people who know the mechanics of that, definitely have a leg up. And so I wanted to spend the summer trying to learn how to do that. As a soccer player, we were never taught the mechanics of it. It was just kind of like run to that ball as fast as possible. So that led up to what they called push championships up in Lake Placid at the end of the summer. And so I trained as hard as I could for that event. And I went up there, and when I went up there, some other prior Olympians came out of the woodwork. We're headed into the Olympic year. So of course, if they're still feeling good, if I were them, I would come back too. So it was kind of like I could see my competition. I could see people who had been doing this for significantly longer than I have. And so I went in, I was going to push my ass off, and I did, and I didn't get last. That was my goal, is to not get last. And but it was clear that there was just like too many girls. I was too close to like that middle chunk, and then there's too many girls ahead of me. That I was invited back in like late August to the combo push champs, where you're with your pilot on the ice pushing, just like the ramp, not the actual track. And I just decided not to do it. I think that I could have, been there, done pretty well, and then raced on the NAC, which is the North America's Cup. But, it was a grind last year. It was a really true grind. And I was feeling a little bit like big time for my mental health. It was like I needed to just kind of take a step back and do something else. So I decided not to go back up there. Yeah.
Dawn, were you there for this part of the training?
No, I wasn't, we weren't as connected through that part of the training. I mean, I obviously watched her through like social and again, tried to check up on her, but largely,
Yeah.
yeah, she was off doing her thing. That's why I was actually really excited to have this conversation, especially to hear like what you learned from that as you came back into like competing at both Wadapalooza and then the Fittest Experience that you just won. Like, did you take anything from the time of training bobsled that helped you or changed you or improved you as an athlete?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when I think back to, like I was talking about, that very first run that I did, but even consecutive runs after that, with I feel like I almost didn't even get to tap into my true potential as an athlete in the sport of bobsled, because I was so worried about not looking like a fool, or like just I wanted to look like the other, like I just was so worried about so many other factors other than actually just performing, that that was a big part of when I stepped back. I didn't know that I was going to go back into the CrossFit space, to be totally honest. When I started going to open box here in Philly, and my now training partner Joey came up to me one day and was like, Kelsey Kiel, what's your plan for this season? I'm like, I need to just like get fit again and do this for fun. And of course, like my competitive spirit, I was just like, okay, let's go, let's do it. But
So you weren't really like missing it when you weren't training?
I was missing, like I keep going back to, I was missing the process of going to the gym and, maybe splitting my sessions and having my work in between. And I was just like missing the routine. And yeah, that process of bettering yourself. When I was training for bobsled, it was like, I mean, obviously they're in the Olympics, it's very results driven, medals driven, podium kind of thing. Whereas like CrossFit is so like, we're just like doing this to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I missed most was just like, I missed the actual like CrossFit of training, because I wasn't doing that with bobsled, but
Yeah.
I missed being, like constantly working on those weaknesses that wasn't just like one very sport specific weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big part of when I started going to the gym again. I hadn't done CrossFit in a year and a half ish, and I knew that I needed a lot of work to get back to being fit in the CrossFit shape. But I think that that's what I take from training for bobsled, was just like, if I'm doing this for like a medal, or for someone to think that I did something, made an Olympic team or competed for Team USA, like, then I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's why when I went back into the gym, I was just like, I'm going to do this because I want to get fit again, and because I miss CrossFit style training. And like I said, it's manifested into this like amazing few months of like really hard workouts and just enjoying every single day that I go in there.
So was competing in CrossFit again, like, would you say it was more enjoyable, or was the stress like way higher just because you had taken a break, or how was that?
It has been still so much more enjoyable than ever before. It feels different. It just feels like I have this new found appreciation for it, appreciation for what my body can do. And I think it's almost like I'm not putting as much pressure on myself. And I think that that's why I'm enjoying it so much, is because I'm almost like, I'm really just doing it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And Dawn, I think that you and I talked a little bit about that back in 2020, that I could say that I was doing it for me, but there was always another layer of a teammate or a different reason that I was doing it. And I feel like now really just doing it for myself and for that enjoyment has been one of the biggest things.
That's
Well,
so awesome.
I have a couple questions. I'm not leaving this topic yet. I love talking to people who were on their way to being part of Team USA.
Yeah.
Olympic Training Center life. Did you get to live at the Lake Placid Training Center?
Yeah, so I went up there in late September of 2020 and didn't leave the training center for that for first stint until like right before Christmas or beginning of December. So I was up there for a few months. Um, with COVID and everything, it was a little bit different than I've heard that it was in the past. So I had my own room. Normally, I think you're with someone else in the room. Our tables in the cafeteria were all spread out. We had to like sit at our own table, but yeah, it was like going back to college.
Right. So that's I lived 4.5 years at OTC in Colorado Springs, and that's what we always say. It's like a college of athletes, right? Everybody has their own specialty, their area of concentration, their sport, their whatever they're into. But you all, you eat together. Sometimes even athletes would be roommates together from different sports. Like that would sometimes happen too, which is really interesting. You get a really good insight into some other sports. But anything interesting? What was the food like at the OTC and Lake Placid?
Honestly, pretty good. It was better. So I went back to the OTC in 2021, like early spring. And I guess they hired a new cook because it was so good when I went that second time. And they always give you the options, right? So they give you like a vegetarian option, and almost every single meal, lunch and dinner, they would have like just chicken breast and like a rice and salad and that kind of thing. So I am someone who, I track and I count my macros. So that was always kind of nice. Colleen and I would like walk in with our little bags with our food scales and stuff. But I thought it was delicious.
And what about Lake Placid itself? Because, for us, Colorado Springs, to get off of complex and to feel like you could experience real life, because, you're in a gated community, essentially. No one's allowed in, no one's allowed out. There's check points everywhere. It's very kind of guarded. What's Lake Placid like outside of the OTC? Is it like, it's just a ski town? What's it like to actually just enjoy outside of what's going on inside the complex?
Yeah. The first couple of months that I was up there, we like could not leave. You could only leave the OTC if you had to like go grocery shopping or go like pick up mail or go to the drugstore or something. But after that, when we were back up there in 2021, it was nice because you could go into the actual town of Lake Placid and go to Starbucks and see different things. When we were there in the summer, it was, you were able to go on the lake and things like that. So Lake Placid is adorable. I would not live there simply because of the winter. It was just like, we would be up on the track warming up in like 3 degrees. Just like, yeah. So it gets a little cold up there.
Amazing. So, okay, last bobsled question. Any predictions for the team?
That is a great question. Oh, I don't know. I am just really excited to watch Keisha push with Kaylee. Keisha actually came in when I did, even a little bit after I did. She was at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, sprinting, and she is just one of my favorite people. And so the fact that she made the national team and then now she's at the Olympics, it's so cool to watch her. Like a year ago, we were racing the NAC together, and it's just cool to see how far she's come. And she's so humble. So it's just like, that one's going to be really fun to watch. And Kaylee is one of the best drivers in the entire world. So it'll be fun. That one will be really fun. And then the other squad of Alana and Sylvia, studs. So I don't know if I have any predictions, but it'll just be
medal potential though between the two of them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Keep an eye on Team USA.
Yeah.
Well, I want to jump back in and talk a little bit more about the mindset stuff and get Dawn back involved here. Talking a little bit about how the tools that she's helped to provide and help kind of expose to you when doubt and challenges do come up. What are some of the things that you've started to implement as an athlete that you found to be super helpful that, working with Dawn has kind of exposed you to?
Yeah, I think as it pertains to like negative self-talk and doubts and that kind of thing, is really like actually just trying to not create the story in your head about, why I suck or why that, and just really look at the thoughts that I'm having and kind of try to separate myself from them and examine them for what they are. Like, are they based in truth? Are they like facts about me? Like things like that. That's been a big shift for me, is not like almost not believing the stories that I make up about myself, whether it's in sport or any of the other things in life. That's been a big one, especially recently. Just, at the Fittest Experience, the very first event was a surprise event, and I got second to last. And that night was big for me to, go back to my hotel room and kind of evaluate the event, but also evaluate my mindset around my abilities as an athlete, which I don't think I would have done before.
Right. It would kind of.
You're pretty consistent with some habits too. Like, I don't know what you've been doing recently, but is there anything that you feel like you do regularly that helps you, whether it is books or podcasts or journaling, prayer, meditation, or like what's in your repertoire now that you feel like as an athlete is helpful for you?
That's a good question. I try to journal every day. Every morning I have like a gratitude journal that is very prompted. So it's like I could just stick in the answers of what it's asking. And one of the big things that I try to do almost every single night is, it's meditation, but it's within my bedtime routine. Like I find myself having a significantly worse night's sleep if I'm on my phone in bed. So a big thing for me has just been like going back to being just like a routine athlete, is putting my phone down. I have one of those hatch lamp things now that I click it for my first part of the routine, and it's like a dimmed light that I read for 15 minutes. And then it goes into like a 9-minute meditation that I fall asleep almost every single time. And then it goes into my white noise. So that's actually, I think, one of the biggest things just in my life, being like having that routine. Yeah.
Before you move on, what is that you just talked about there?
It's called a hatch.
Can you explain it again?
Yeah, it's like,
I might want to get one of these. What is this?
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I just got it for Christmas, so it's been like not a whole lot of this, but it's a bedtime light. It has a clock on it, and you have an app on your phone, and you set your whole routine. So you can like set as many steps to this routine as you want. Mine's just the 3, but you like tap the top of it, and it goes into this specific light that you put in there. And like you set the color of the light and everything like that. And I have like some water noise going, and it's like you can set for as long as you want. Mine's 15 minutes of reading, and then it automatically turns into this like reddish orange light, and then a guy talks me through a meditation.
Wow.
And then after that meditation, it goes totally dark, and it has just like the gray noise for the whole night. And then in the morning you can set when you're going to wake up. So if I wake up at 7:30, 15 minutes before that, it starts waking you up with like a sunrise.
Oh, wow.
So the light will start like doing a sunrise, and then at that 7:30 mark, it'll do my like chirping alarm.
That's awesome.
It's so cool. Yeah.
I like that. I like that idea. I might have to check that. Jordan just sent over the link to it. I might have to do a quick purchase right now.
I think that's really good for people to hear, because like you are fairly active on social media, and I think you do an awesome job at letting people know like the insights of your life, your day to day, like as an athlete, as a person, as a coach, all the different things that you're like incorporating in your life. I think it's provides like a lot of good insight to people, for like people who are wondering about what the athlete lifestyle is like. And I think it's cool for you to also say, hey, it's a good boundary for me at night. Like, this is my practice. This is something I've realized helps me to be off my phone during the evening or those last whatever minutes. Because I think that, people would just see that and assume like, you're either on there 24/7, or that you maybe don't have a practice like that
right.
you stick to.
Yeah.
Well, on the social media side, you have a substantial following. What's What do you use social media for the most? Is it to just let people have insight into what's going on into your daily life, a way to communicate with your followers? What do you feel like you get out of social media, and how do you use it?
So I think one of the biggest things um, for me in my life, and whether that's with my job as a nutrition coach or as an athlete, I want to help people in some way. And I think that using social media can be a way to like reach a lot of people in a meaningful way. So I try really hard to be as honest as I can on social media. Obviously, we show what we choose to show people. But I like to mix in with my like posting of me lifting weights. I like to mix in things like I posted something yesterday about like appreciating my body and what it can do, as much as like we all have self-doubts and negative self-talk about what we might look like and things like that. I try to stay as genuine and as real as possible on there, just because I don't want someone to come to my page on there and just sort of see a sales pitch for like everything I'm sponsored by or whatever it might be. And that's always something that I work really hard on if I ever take on a new sponsorship, is making sure my content stays genuine and organic in a way. But I think sometimes people see high level athletes, like no matter the sport, and they just think like that person got there like that. And for me, it's been such a climb. Yes, I played soccer in college, but I always say like I was definitely just like a mediocre soccer player. After college, I was coaching some soccer, but I was, drinking and I was partying. I weighed over 200 pounds and was not very athletic, like outside of going to Planet Fitness and, playing with the U9 girls that I coached. And it still continues to be a journey for me, going from like that point in my life, that time in my life, to where I am now, and just continuing to try to be the best version of myself. And I try to remind people that it is okay to, stumble and fall. And I think that I feel lucky that I have such a big following that, people stuck with me with the bobsled thing. And if I can inspire someone to go try something that they suck at. I was really bad at bobsled, at sprinting, and like, I don't know, it's just, I try to stay as real as I can on there for sure.
And
yeah.
I think, you mentioning, this transition period from being a soccer player into what you are now as an elite athlete. It's interesting. I'm sure people love hearing that you didn't just kind of come out of the womb and were this superior athlete right off the bat, right? How did you get into CrossFit? And did you feel like when you found it that this was the sport that I've kind of been missing, and this is the one that kind of really clicked for you?
Yeah. So my sister actually took me to my first CrossFit class back in the very end of 2014. And I was bad. It was really bad. And it definitely tapped into that competitive part of me that I'd been missing. I graduated in 2013, so it'd been a little while since I had kind of felt that competitive drive. And it was almost like I was so bad at it that I wanted to like try to get a little bit better. But I did not really start taking it seriously until the end of 2015. The 2015 Open was the one that Dave Castro programmed, the clean and jerk, which came after that first workout, like a bunch of gymnastics and then a max clean and jerk. And in my region, I did awful in that first part, like 2000s or even worse. But I got second on the clean and jerk in my region. And I kind of remember being like, okay, I'm strong. I have that going for me. Now, like, let's see if we can kind of figure out the other stuff with CrossFit. So it was just kind of like, see what I could do. If you had told me then I'd be where I am now, I would have absolutely never believed you. Not in a million years. And it wasn't until, like I said, the end of 2015 when I switched gyms and I met some more people that we decided to kind of go for it.
Had you ever picked up barbell or anything like that for soccer? Did you do anything?
We like squatted and deadlifted and like bench press. We didn't do much. Yeah.
Do you think that it seems like CrossFit obviously now is, much more, it's everywhere, right? It's Starbucks.
Yeah.
It's actually being applied in a lot more different sports settings. Do you think that you would have benefited from you would have been a better soccer player if you had CrossFit earlier on? Do you think that bobsledders would benefit by doing more CrossFit as well?
I 100% think I would have been a different soccer player if I had started CrossFit earlier in my life, from so many different areas, like just the physical, but also like the mindset stuff around it. I just think that like with CrossFit, you're kind of like forced to go to a different place in your mind. And that just wasn't even on my radar when I was in college. And it's funny that you say that about bobsledders, because I feel like I'm 30 and I was like on the younger side for bobsledders. Bobsledders are a lot of, not all of them, of course. Keisha just graduated college, so she's, she's a young blood, but there's a lot of people who come from other sports, because you can see how a football player would be super explosive and super strong, or a sprinter in track would be the same kind of thing. So I think that there might be like some untapped CrossFitters who are still CrossFitting, who maybe down the line could be excellent bobsledders.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
A second career coming for a lot of CrossFitters. Yeah. So goal wise, what kind of goals you have for upcoming season? Are you, assuming you're doing the Open, planning for a year in team competition? What do you got going on for 2022?
Yeah. So signed up for the Open. Have this squad together in Philadelphia that I'm really excited about. We're actually team training this afternoon. Got to get on that worm. It'll be a lot of fun. My goal is to, and I know it's a cohesive team goal because we've chatted about it, but we want to get to the games and not just get there to get our jersey. We want to go and, put a run for it, and maybe get like Rich Froding to be like, oh yeah, we should be worried about them for this event or something like that. Because their team just is mayhem. So part
of it is verbalizing it, right? Part of it is actually saying it and saying, our goal is to be on the podium, and we believe that we have the guns to do it.
Not just participate. We want to go and instill some fear in some of these other teams.
I love it.
It. I'm pumped for you.
Are you doing the Open?
No.
That was a definitive no.
That was fast.
No, I don't do that CrossFit stuff.
What?
I dabble, but not really.
Before?
No. Like first year I went to do it, I actually hurt my back. It took me out for like 5 or 6 years. And so ever since then,
goodness, really?
I just like incorporated more functional bodybuilding style training and pieces of CrossFit, but
no.
4 or 5 years. That's no joke. That's quite an injury.
Yeah, I'd rather coach it now any day.
I love it. Well, we're getting towards the end here, Kelsey, and we have some rapid fire questions if you're up for them.
Okay, I'll do my best.
So the first one, I feel like I know the answer already after what you're just saying from your clean and jerk workout from one of your first disciplines. What sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics?
Weightlifting.
She laughs.
Anytime that Chad's not on here and he gets a weightlifting vote, it really upsets me. So we'll make sure that we cut that part. Jordan, make sure we can mark this off and cut that part out of the conversation so Chad never hears it. How is gymnastics? Has your gymnastics gotten better at all?
Oh, it's gotten better. Yeah, I actually had a very specific ring muscle up session this morning. So
all right. Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully
I call it big gymnastics. I'm almost 5'8", 178 pounds, so a lot to get up there.
Yeah, I love that though. I love seeing people that don't have the prototypical body type for gymnastics,
Yeah.
getting upside down, getting on the rings, getting on the bar, and showing that, hey, you don't have to be 5-foot hobbit, nothing like me to actually do gymnastics work, right? Question number 2, any guests that you think would be great to have on the podcast?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good question. This is not rapid fire. I'm sorry. I'm blanking out.
This always stumps. This always
It
stumps
does.
people, and then taking people a little bit longer, and come back to me on that one. That's all right. All good.
Okay, come
All
back.
good. If you are a reader, any books that you've come across recently that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I actually just finished reading the Will Smith book.
Oh, okay.
Really good. Really enjoyed it. I listened to it on Audible. So he was narrating and it was just great. And he's a Philly guy, so that was great. But I'm actually rereading Talking with Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Uh-huh.
Really enjoy that book.
Love it.
Oh, highly
Dawn, any
recommend.
books from you recently that you've come across?
The Comfort Crisis is so good.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Jordan just freaked out on the
He
video.
did.
He mentioned
I'm
it
gonna write that down.
yesterday.
Yeah, I'm
And,
about halfway through and I just like reread parts because I get like I love that kind of stuff.
Who's the author? So we can
Jordan,
give him a shout out.
I can grab it real
See who
quick.
that is, but
Michael Easton.
There you go.
amazing. All right, another one for our library. Chad and I have a library that it's gonna take us another 50 years to get through after listening to all the people's suggestions on the podcast. But so before we jump off, Kelsey, thanks for the time. Is there anything that you have coming up that you want to share with our listeners, where they can find you, and anything you have coming up on the docket?
I love that I don't have anything coming up because I've just been traveling so much that I'm so excited to be in one place for a while. But if you ever check out my Instagram, you can see the fitness that I do, and you can see my adorable dog and my food that I eat.
All right, I love it.
Yeah.
What about you, Dawn? Anything you got coming up?
I have some ridiculous things coming up, yeah, but largely just follow me on Driven Mind Training if you want any mindset help or mental performance stuff. I'm going to keep trying to collect as many adventures as possible in the coming months.
I love it. You're always out doing something absurd and ridiculous and awesome, and something that everyone wishes they were doing, whether that's hiking mountains or adventure racing or whatever it is. So I would definitely check out what Dawn's got coming up next. It's probably something you want to put in your agenda too.
And I would love to get Kelsey to Power Monkey Camp too. I encouraged her, but was surprised that she hadn't been. It would be awesome to have her there.
Yeah, that would be fun.
You know about camp a little bit?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right, we definitely got to see if we can get you out. We'd love to have you as a guest. Next camp is coming up. We are actually sold out. We're excited about it. It's going to be May 1st through the 7th. So you guys can follow along for our spring camp. It's our 17th one. Our 18th one is going to be September 25th to October 1st. We are sold out of our pre-sale right now. So if you're interested in checking it out, I would highly recommend going to powermonkeycamp.com. For those of you out there listening, please head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events as well. Check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content on Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante. And Dawn, what is your handle?
At Driven Mind Training.
At Driven Mind Training. Perfect. On behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your hosts. I'm Dave Durante with Dawn Fletcher. Thank you both for the time today. Kelsey, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.